Picture this, a single phone call between Nairobi and Beijing. On one end, Kenya's treasury officials, on the other, Chinese bankers. What they are discussing could send shockwaves through Washington's corridors of power. Kenya just made a move that has Wall Street analysts burning the midnight oil. They are converting billions of dollars in Chinese debt into yuan, not pounds, not euros, yuan. But here is what mainstream media won't tell you. This isn't just about one country's debt strategy. What we are witnessing is the opening move in Africa's chess game for financial independence. And the stakes, the entire global monetary system as we know it. I'm Asongwe Luis, and this is the Strategic Lens, where we uncover the real strategies behind Africa's biggest moves. Today we are diving deep into 4 interconnected stories that reveal how Africa is quietly rewriting the rules of global power. By the end of this video, you would understand why Kenya's currency swap isn't just smart economics, it's revolutionary. Why Julius Malema's radical vision for Africa might not be so radical at all. And why a trade war between China and America could actually hand Africa the keys to its own destiny. Ready? Let's expose the truth behind this week's power plays. Kenya spends $1 billion every single year just paying interest to China. 1 billion. That's enough money to build 200 modern hospitals or educate 2 million children. Instead, it vanishes into debt payments. But Kenya's finance minister just walked into a room with Chinese officials and said something that made Beijing smile. What if we could pay you with yuan instead? Now, yuan is Chinese currency, the equivalent of the dollar to the US. Now, here's the bombshell. Converting Kenya's debt from dollars to yuan cuts Kenya's interest payments by half. Half. We are talking about saving $500 million annually, money that could transform millions of African lives. Now think about this. Imagine you are paying rent in an expensive foreign currency and your landlord just suddenly offers to let you pay in your local currency at half the rate. That's essentially what China just offered to Kenya. But China is doing this out of kindness. Every yuan-dominated loan is a chess piece in Beijing's long-term strategy. When countries use yuan instead of dollars, they are essentially voting against American financial dominance. Now pay attention. This is where it gets interesting. Now Kenya isn't just some small economy. It's East Africa's financial hub. When Kenya makes this move, every other African country is watching and thinking. Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, they all have Chinese debt. They all have crushing interest rates in dollars. What happens when they start calling Beijing to make the same request Kenya just made? We could be witnessing the beginning of the end of the dollar dominance in Africa. Not through war or sanctions, but simple economics. China offers better terms. African countries take them, and suddenly the continent is trading in yuan instead of dollars. But Kenya currency play is just one piece of a larger puzzle. While they are negotiating with China, they are also making moves that will surprise you. We will come back to that. First, let me show you how Japan just entered this chess game. While everyone's watching US-China rivalry, Japan just made a move that nobody saw coming. They offered Kenya $169 million in financing. Not for roads or railways like China does, but for something much more strategic. Japan's money goes to 2 specific sectors: car manufacturing and electricity. Now, why these 2? Because they create jobs that keep people in Kenya instead of migrating. Because this strategic financing builds the foundation for Kenya's own industrial revolution. Now, here is the genius of Japan's approach. Instead of funding mega projects that create debt, They are funding the industries that generate the income to pay off debt. Now Kenya now has three major partners: China building infrastructure, Japan building industries, and America, well, America is mostly offering lectures about debt sustainability and increase in tariffs. So which approach do you think African countries prefer? The partner who builds their roads, the partner who builds their factories, or the partner who builds their problems? But while Kenya plays this balancing act, someone else is thinking much bigger, much more radical, and his vision could change everything. Julius Malema stands in a room in Nigeria full of lawyers. One Africa, one military, one currency, one president. The room goes silent, then erupts, because everyone knows he's not talking about unity. He's talking about a revolution. Now Malema isn't dreaming, he's calculating. Right now Africa has 54 different currencies, 54 different armies, 54 different leaders who can be played against each other by outside powers. Now, but imagine one African currency backed by the continent's immense gold reserves, diamonds, oil, and rare minerals. Imagine one African market of 1.4 billion people. Now imagine one African voice in global negotiations. Now critics say it's impossible. Too many differences, too much pride, too much history. But here's what they are all missing. Kenya just proved that African countries will choose practical benefits over political loyalty. If Malema's vision can deliver prosperity, history and pride won't stop it. So the real question isn't whether Malema's vision is possible. The question is, what happens to global power structures if it becomes reality? Now, speaking of global power structures, there is one more story that ties everything together. A trade war that could accidentally hand Africa exactly what Malema is asking for. Trump threatens 200% tariffs on Chinese manufactured goods if China cuts rare earth mineral exports. Now China responds by restricting these critical exports. American factories shut down, European car makers panic. And Africa starts smiling. The opportunity that most people miss is that Africa has rare earth minerals too. Lots of them, but they have never been able to compete with China's low prices until now, when US-China trade wars drive up prices. Suddenly African mines become profitable. Suddenly African countries have leverage. Now the irony here, America and China are fighting over who controls global supply chains. Meanwhile, their fight is creating the exact conditions necessary for Africa to build its own supply chains. Now connect the dots. Kenya switches to Yuan to save money. Japan invests in African manufacturing. Malema calls for continental unity, and US-China conflicts create opportunities for African mineral exports. Now, what we are witnessing isn't four separate stories. It's one story told in four different chapters. Africa's strategic independence. Every chess master knows that the most powerful moves are the ones your opponent doesn't see coming. While America and China focus on each other, Africa is quietly positioning itself as the kingmaker. Kenya's yuan conversion isn't just about debt relief, it's about financial sovereignty. Japan industrial investment isn't just about development, it's about self-reliance. Malema's unity call isn't just about politics, it's about power. And the US-China trade war isn't just about competition, it's about opportunity. So the stakes in the next 10 years will determine whether Africa becomes the world's most powerful continent or remains divided and dependent. The pieces are moving, the game has begun. Here's what I want you to do. Stop thinking about Africa as a victim of global power games. Start seeing Africa as a player, because that's exactly what these four stories prove we have become. What do you think? Is Kenya's yuan gambit the beginning of Africa's financial independence? Could Malema's radical vision actually work? And are we witnessing the birth of a new African century? Drop your thoughts down below. And if this analysis opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered, share it with somebody who needs to see it. This is the Strategic Lens, where we uncover the strategies that shape our continent's future. And until next week, keep watching, keep thinking, and keep believing in Africa's rise.